Hi, welcome to season 2 in our Love and Relationship Affairs LARA, tagged Before Saying I Do. Today I'll be sharing with you the part 1, Understanding the Permanence of Marriage. Marriage is one thing that can mark or break anybody's life, but many do not really understand what it is. They go into it with little or no knowledge. So today we'll be starting from that point to understand what it is. Some people will say, young person, when they see a couple, maybe doing public display of affection, say, God, when? They so admire the institution, but somehow you see many are going into it and they are coming out. Those who are there want to come out. Those who are not there want to go in. So we want to understand, what is this relationship about? May I state that understanding the permanence of marriage is fundamental to establishing a strong foundation for a lifelong commitment. Yes, it's a lifelong commitment. In the Bible, marriage is regarded as a sacred covenant between two individuals ordained by God Himself. In the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, the Bible says, "Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh." So according to this Edenic model of marriage, a man and woman are to be joined together from the Hebrew word dabak to one another in a permanent marital, relationship. In Matthew 19, verse 5 and 6, Jesus reaffirms this sanctity by stating, "For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." So they are no longer two, but one flesh. They're not two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate or put asunder, as King James will say. L.G. White, a prominent Christian author, echoes this sentiment in her writing. She emphasized the divine institution of marriage. She also talked about the importance of cherishing its permanence. She writes, and I quote, "The marriage vow is a most solemn pledge, one which should never be assumed without due consideration. When men and women stand before God and pledge themselves to a lifelong companionship, their promise should be kept with fidelity." End of quote. So marriage, there will be challenges, there will be difficulties, but when those days comes, it is crucial for the couples to be able to remember the commitment they made before God and one another. Somehow, today, one way of breaking marriages now is through divorce. And the Bible has a lot to say about this. But you need to understand that the issue of divorce should not be taken lightly, as it contradicts the sacred bond established in the marriage. In Malachi chapter 2, verse 16, the Bible states, "For the Lord God of Israel says He hates divorce." God hates it. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10 through 11, the Apostle Paul instructs, and I quote, "To the married, I give this command, not I but the Lord. A wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband. And a husband must not divorce his wife." That's what Paul says. Also, except on some instances of, abandonment, or some instances of an unbeliever leaving the believing wife or husband. In that case, somehow something could be considered. But it is even said, by Paul, that even the believing wife or husband should stay in that marriage, should have his or her good deed. She can convert the unbeliever. However, L.G. White further emphasizes the gravity of divorce, stating, and I quote, "When one of the parties to a marriage contract is controlled by a force so powerful that reason, conscience, and the fear of God are overborne, the other party is released from the marriage vow. But if it is the one to whom restraint and entity must be applied, the words of inspiration are, 'Let not the wife depart from her husband.'" 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10. So, what will be the ground for divorce if this is the case. In Matthew 5:32, Jesus says, "But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery." So in the teaching of Jesus Christ, the only permissible ground or grounds for divorce as are outlined clearly: sexual immorality. Even then, divorce should not even be entered into hastily, but it should be considered with deep reflection and prayer. See, forgiveness can still come in. So this emphasizes that the seriousness of marriage covenant and the need for fidelity within it is very important. And before one goes into it, you must be careful before you enter. That's what we're talking about before saying "I do." And here what also talks about, this legal as a legal contract. She says, and I quote, "Say true marriage, according to her, he said, it's not merely a legal contract, but a spiritual covenant before God." You see, what she's saying in essence is that there are some marriages today that in the law court, it can be broken. It can say, okay, both of you can be responsible and can go remarry. But before God, it's still a contract. See, a covenant rather. Before the law court, it could be a contract. You can break it and move. No! In the court, any ground can be brought: abandonment, abuse, violence, and what have you. And then both parts go their separate ways. Even in the traditional way, people can get to accept that. But once it's already entered upon as a covenant before God, God can say that marriage is still binding. So there can be couples who have remarried and they are still joined together in the sight of God with their old spouse. It's as serious as that. Yes, my sister, my brother. It's as serious as that you can be divorced by the law court and you are still married before God. So let's be careful. Let's be careful. So in concluding this part, understanding this permanence of marriage requires a deep reverence for divine institution of marriage as ordained by God. Through our honoring our vows and seeking reconciliation in times of trouble, we uphold this sanctity of marriage and demonstrate our commitment to God's design for a lifelong companionship. So on this ground, I'll be running this series in order to share the truth that singles must take time to consider seriously before they say "I do," and to roll in our subsequent part. So make sure you don't miss any part in this series. Be the first person to receive notification by hitting the subscribe button now. If you're going to like this video, like it so others can have access to it. And if you are yet to share, please share. And make sure you turn on your notification bell so that when I upload, you'll be the first person to be notified, and then you can come and watch and share. But make sure you don't miss any part. God bless you. And as we journey together in this series, I remain your host, Pastor Ebhomenmen Jeffrey. Do have a wonderful time after now. Bye.